Imagine the whole reality TV industry being rocked to its foundation by just one startling discovery. Fans are gaping, insiders are murmuring, and families are wondering who they can truly trust because of this shocking secret. We're discussing Chantel's unexpected and shocking entrance into the public eye. Evelyn, the drama. Yes, Evelyn is being charged with carrying TAI's husband's child. It seems like the type of twist that could only be created by scripted television. However, the anxiety is unavoidable as these rumors are circulating across the entertainment industry. Chantel's audacious assertions frightened Evelyn as well. Fans are analyzing every glance as a result of the chain reaction they started. Every half smile and every social media post was captured on camera. Let's face it, if we've learned anything about this gang, it's that secrets are never kept hidden for very long. So fasten your seatbelts because we're about to dive headfirst into a tempest of loyalty, treachery, and startling revelations that have the power to alter everything tonight. In the never-ending game of reality TV power maneuvers, is Chantel revealing the truth or is this simply another calculated move? In any event, the mayhem has already started and isn't going to stop. On what appeared to be just another typical day in the realm of reality television, the tension started to build. However, Chantel's face conveyed to everyone that a heavy object was going to fall when she entered the room. The vibe changed, immediately, as though everyone in the room could feel a storm building. Later, many who watched live streaming claimed to have felt the air physically thicken. Chantel didn't waste time on idle chatter, so she leaned in and said, "Evelyn is carrying a baby aunt, not just anybody's baby," in a firm but stern voice. However, the response was instantaneous for TAI's spouses. Others stopped, unable to comprehend what they had just heard, while others gasped and giggled uneasily. Completely taken aback, TAI squinted at Chantel as though she were challenging her to reiterate the assertion. Evelyn grabbed for a glass of water, her hands shaking a little. More mistrust is only stoked by her silence. Evelyn eventually mumbled, "You've lost your mind." Chantel, as the room appeared to burst with whispers, side chats, and piercing gazes during that period of stillness. With her eyes darting between TAI and Evelyn, Chantel said, "People deserve to know," her voice trembling but low enough that only a select few could hear it. "Why would you spread something like that?" she asked, leaning back casually, almost enjoying the shockwaves she had caused, until the baby arrived and everyone began to piece things together. "You better explain yourself," she screamed, her voice cracking in places. "Because if you're playing games with my family, I promise you this won't end well." TAI's chair scraped the floor as she stood suddenly, her chest rising and falling quickly. However, Chantel, the words stung like daggers. Cameras zoomed in on Evelyn's face, which flushed crimson as she shifted uneasily. Fans later slowed down the footage frame by frame, analyzing every blink, every twitch, every swallowed breath. To many, it looked like guilt. To others, it looked like pure anger at being cornered. "Oh, I'm not playing games. I've seen the messages, the late-night meetings, the way you've been sneaking around. Evelyn, you know exactly what I'm talking about." A cousin yelled, "That isn't appropriate here." While another pleaded with Chantel to calm down, the damage had already been done. The room had changed from a place of lighthearted conversation to one of treachery and accusations. TAI's husband had been silent until he finally spoke, but his low voice had a weight that made everyone else stop talking. "Shankit, do you have proof? Because if you don't, you're destroying lives with your mouth." At that point, Chantel took out her phone and began to scroll with purposeful slowness until she landed on a series of screenshots. She held up the phone, but instead of passing it around, she described what was on the screen. Hotel receipts, messages, late-night calls that don't match what either of them claimed. "Tell me, does that sound like lies?" Shouts of disbelief filled the room once more, and Evelyn jumped up from her chair, tears in her eyes, and snapped. "You don't know what you're talking about. Those messages were taken out of context. You're twisting everything to make me look bad." Chantel tilted her head, pretending to be sympathetic. Perhaps the truth is finally. The tension between TAI and Evelyn became intolerable, and TAI moved closer, her voice shaking, asking, "Is it true?" "People will see what they want to see anyway. Evelyn, just tell me. Don't skirt the issue. I'm entitled to know." Everyone in the audience held their breath, waiting for Evelyn to respond. Her lips opened, but she remained silent as she glanced from TAI to Chantel and back again, making her silence the loudest sound of all. This stillness threw fans into Chantel's husband slammed his fist on the table and said, "Enough!" He barked, This circus ends here. If you've got nothing solid, Chantel, then stop this madness. Within minutes, videos of the altercation went viral on social media, and theories arose. Some claimed Chantel had made up the whole story in order to damage Evelyn's reputation, while others said the way Evelyn froze up was unmistakable evidence that something was being concealed back in the room. The emotional weight of betrayal pressed down on TAI, and her hands trembled as she clutched the edge of her chair. Whether you like it or not, the truth will come out. A family friend whispered to another. She wouldn't have said it if she didn't have something. Chantel's bold, but she's not reckless. Another shot back. You're wrong. She thrives on drama. Cameras captured Evelyn storming towards the exit, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. But before she could leave, Chantel called out, "Running away won't erase the truth." The room had become divided, with half believing Chantel's shocking claims and the other half defending Evelyn with all of their remaining loyalty. In the midst of all of this, TAI was left with the possibility that her marriage, her trust, and her family's reputation were hanging by a thread through the chaos. Everyone will eventually discover what you have been concealing. Evelyn paused at the door, breathing deeply as her shoulders rose and fell. But she didn't look back. Fans online had already started analyzing every frame of what had just happened. But inside the room, the battle had only just begun. She pushed the door open and disappeared into the hallway, leaving behind a room drowning in suspicion and shattered trust. The silence that followed her departure was deafening, with everyone lost in their own thoughts and every fan at home glued to their screens, wondering if this was the beginning of the end or just the tip of the iceberg. The vibrations seemed to linger in the air long after Evelyn had vanished, leaving everyone in the room stunned, eyes darting from TAI to Chantel to the husband, who now appeared to want to melt into the floor. Is there even a shred of truth in what Chantel said? Because I swear to God, if you've been lying to me, you won't have to wait for fans or the cameras to destroy you. I'll do it myself. He raised his hands defensively, shaking his head. TAI, listen to me. She's twisting everything. Chantel thrives on creating chaos. Evelyn is like family to us. I would never... But before he could finish, Chantel interrupted with a razor-sharp, "You don't know what you're talking about?" He snapped, "You don't know the whole story." Family, he said, is a funny way to describe secret meetings in hotel lobbies at midnight. It's a funny way to explain the hushed phone calls that lasted hours. When TAI thought you were asleep, the room took a collective breath and all eyes shifted back to him. His jaw clenched, his fists tightened at his sides. At that line, TAI's eyes grew wide. The entire narrative. With tears streaming down her cheeks, she took a step closer and said, "So, there's a story?" "There is something I don't know," she said, her voice breaking with each word. He stumbled, struggling to find the right words, but the damage was done. Aunt Marlene, who had been sitting quietly in the corner, finally spoke up, her tone steady and maternal, but with a hint of accusation. "Son, if there's nothing to hide, then why does every word out of your mouth sound like you're hiding something? Chantel may be dramatic, but she doesn't create smoke out of thin air. What exactly are you not telling your wife?" He rubbed his forehead, obviously overwhelmed. "Look, Evelyn and she's been going through things, personal things, and I was just trying to be there for her. It was never like that. Be there for her. It was never like that." Chantel scoffed loudly, almost theatrically. "Personal things. Is that what you're calling it now? Because I've seen the texts, I've seen the late-night confessions, and I've seen the I can't stop thinking about you nonsense. You're discrediting everyone's intelligence by it was just friendly support." TAI appeared as though the earth had disappeared under her feet. "I trusted you," she whispered to her husband, her voice shaking so much that it was hardly audible. "I stood up for you against my own family, and I defended you when people tried to paint you as shady." Now, as she fell into a chair, her hands covering her face, her words trailed off. The family gathered around her, some glaring at Chantel for stirring the pot, while others patted her back. Chantel didn't back down, though, and her voice became sharper due to the combination of shock and adrenaline. "You can all be mad at me for saying it aloud, but you know in your heart that I'm telling the truth. Evelyn's disappearance just now, her silence, that wasn't anger, that was guilt. She couldn't handle the truth coming out in public." Meanwhile, social media had turned into a battlefield, with fans divided into two camps. One group claimed that Chantel was a master manipulator, putting together this spectacle to increase her own relevance, while the other side insisted that her walking away was evidence that she had something to hide. Hour by hour, hashtags like #TalerTeamCHell and #ProtectEvelyn fought each other. TAI's husband slammed his palm against the table once more, raising his voice, saying, "This must stop. You're poisoning this family, Chantel. I don't know what your endgame is, but you're tearing us apart." Chantel didn't flinch, saying, "I'm not tearing anything apart. The lies are, the betrayals are." TAI, her face streaked with tears, finally raised her head. "Then prove it," she said firmly, her voice trembling but determined. "Show me the messages." As she unlocked her phone once more, Chantel's lips curled into a knowing smile, saying, "Show me everything. Because if you're telling the truth, I deserve to see it with my own eyes." She scrolled through her gallery, bringing up screenshots one by one, the first one flashing across the screen. Late-night conversations that sounded far too intimate to be innocent. The second being receipts for dinners and hotel stays that corresponded with the nights TAI's husband claimed to have been working. 8. Each revelation sliced through the air like a blade, making TAI shudder every second. Family members exchanged uncomfortable looks, some speculating that perhaps Chantel was telling the truth after all, while others insisted it was a setup. However, no one could deny the raw emotion on TAI's face as she took in all the evidence, and her husband tried to explain it in a desperate voice. "TAI, please." "It wasn't what it looks like. I never crossed that line. I swear you have to believe me." The weight of that statement hung in the air like a heavy fog, pressing down on everyone in the room. Chantel folded her arms, her face unreadable, but her eyes glimmered with the certainty of someone who believed she had just won a battle. Even though the war was far from over, the door suddenly swung open again just when the tension seemed unbearable. Evelyn returned, her face pale but her eyes blazing with determination. She didn't sit, she didn't even look at Chantel. Instead, she walked straight up to TAI, her hands shaking but her voice steady. "It's not what you think," she said firmly, "but I'll tell you the truth, not her perverted version, if you truly want to hear it." The room froze. Fans online braced themselves. This was no longer just whispers and accusations. This was about to become a direct confession, and nobody knew which way the storm was about to turn. Evelyn's words hung in the air like a challenge, her voice cutting through the silence with a force that made everyone straighten in their seats. TAI stared at her, eyes swollen from crying, but still sharp with suspicion. Chantel leaned back, arms crossed, lips curled into a smirk as if daring Evelyn to trip over her own defense. "Then talk," TAI said coldly. "Tell me exactly what's happening while maintaining eye contact. Because all I see at the moment is a spouse who is unable to provide me with a direct response, and a friend who has been keeping things from me." With her hands clutched firmly in front of her, Evelyn took a trembling breath. "It's true that I've been spending time with him," she said, glanced at TAI's spouse for a while before turning her head away. "But it wasn't an affair," she said. "I was dealing with a private matter that I was unable to discuss with anybody else. The only person who paid attention was him. The only person who gave me a sense of community. However, it never progressed further that point. Not once. The room was filled with a murmur. Her statement seemed real, even vulnerable to some. It seemed like a well-planned justification to others. Without any delay, Chantel jumped right in. "Do you think we'll accept that?" She lost her temper. "At midnight, you disappear. You are apprehended entering hotels covertly. You're going to stand here and claim it was innocent when you're texting love-stricken crap at 2 a.m. Evelyn, hurry up!" Humans aren't that simple-minded. Evelyn jerked back, her lips quivering as her poise briefly faltered. "You don't know everything, Chantel, even though you believe you do. Bits and pieces are what you take. You don't know the whole picture, so you may twist things and show them out as though you're some sort of truth teller." TAI cut in, her voice steady yet tremulous. "Then explain to me what it was, if it wasn't treachery or an affair. Why don't you tell me about it?" "Evelyn, I'm your friend. You had every opportunity to tell me, but you chose to keep it to yourself. Why?" "Because I was ashamed," Evelyn muttered, her eyes welling with tears, and the room fell silent. Chantel's smile dimmed a little as her interest piqued expression. The spouse of TAI moved uneasily, avoiding everyone's gaze. "What are you ashamed of?" TAI questioned quietly, her uncertainty temporarily calming her rage. As she spoke, Evelyn's voice broke and she glanced to the floor. "Since the infant is genuine. It's not what you think, though. It's not a child of your husband. It's mine and. I didn't want the father's identity to be known. Not quite yet. He was the only person that kept my secret, so I went to him. I pleaded with him to keep it a secret. The room reverberated with gasps. Family members covered their lips in shock as jaws fell. Chantel's confidence wavered for the first time and her eyes grew wide. In an attempt to regain her balance, Chantel responded slowly, "So, you admit there's a baby. You acknowledge concealing it. We can't assume that you discussed babysitter tips at your late-night discussions." With anguish in her voice, Evelyn said, "Spare me. I was afraid, so I went to him." Chantel is afraid of criticism. "I'm afraid of becoming a single parent. I'm afraid the world will know before I'm ready. TAI was attempting to survive, so I wasn't skulking about to betray him. Naturally, though, you couldn't help but make it a show." TAI's thoughts was racing and her chest was rising and falling quickly. "If what you're saying is true, then who's the father?" she insisted, a dot. Evelyn's lips pressed firmly together as she hesitated. Whispers echoed across the room as her quiet dragged on for too long. Chantel seized the moment of indecision. "See, she can't even say it," Chantel said loudly. The room erupted as TAI abruptly snapped, glaring at Chantel. "If it wasn't TAI's husband, then why not just tell us? Unless you're lying. Unless you're hiding something worse, stop it." All eyes returned to Evelyn, whose face was now streaked with tears, and her voice decreased to nearly a whisper. "The father isn't someone I can name right now. It's complicated. If I told you, it wouldn't just ruin Mitt, would ruin him too. And I'm not ready to ruin his life. She's protecting someone important." "You don't stay quiet like that unless it's somebody with power," said one relative loudly, while another whispered, "What if it's actually TAI's husband and she's just spinning a new lie?" Whether it's true or not, the secrecy alone feels like betrayal. "How am I supposed to trust either of you again?" TAI's hands trembled as she wiped her cheeks. "You don't understand what this feels like," she whispered bitterly. Her husband finally spoke, his voice low and strained. "I swear to you, TAI, I never betrayed you. I only helped Evelyn because she begged me to. I couldn't turn my back on her. I didn't tell you because it wasn't my secret to tell." Chantel laughed bitterly and clapped her hands slowly. "How noble, the faithful husband protecting a friend. But here's the thing. You didn't protect your wife. You left her in the dark while the rest of us watched you sneak around. And now we're just supposed to take your word for it." TAI buried her face in her hands once more, sobbing openly. Family members hurried to her side, but her words were muffled by her tears. Evelyn stood in the middle of the rain, wiping her cheeks with shaky hands. "Believe me or don't," she murmured gently, "but the truth will come out sooner or later. I don't know what to believe anymore. Every side sounds like a lie. And perhaps you'll finally comprehend why I did what I did when it does. Perhaps then you'll see why I did what I did." Social internet was ablaze with hypotheses as paparazzi cameras flashed outside the house, spreading rumors like wildfire. Was Evelyn indeed concealing the name of another guy, or was she safeguarding it? The room held its breath as Chantel straightened her back and stared at everyone as if she were the only one brave enough to handle the truth. The silence was oppressive, heavy enough that even the faint buzz of the cameras could be heard. Truth about her connection with TAI's husband? Fans argued nonstop, dissecting every statement, every hesitation, every tear. The chaos had spilt far beyond the room. It was now a public frenzy with no signs of slowing down. And inside, amid the shouts, sobs, and accusations, one thing had become clear. The cracks in this family weren't going to heal anytime soon. Chest, almost silently murmuring, "Who is it? Say it, simply speak the name." It's not just about Evelyn. It's about who she's been with. And if you really want to know, the father of her baby isn't TAI's husband at all. It's Marcus. Her desperation shattered the air like lightning. Chantel. Let the tension stretch, relishing the chaos she had already created. Her lips curled into a cunning smile as she finally spoke. The revelation came like a bomb no one could defuse. Marcus D's own cousin, a man who had always been around family gatherings, trusted and respected. "You're lying!" TAI yelled, her voice trembling between anger and heartbreak. "Marcus, my cousin, that's disgusting, that's insane. You're making this up just to break us apart." Evelyn's silence screamed louder than words, and her eyes darted to the floor, then back at TAI before finally settling on Marcus, who had been sitting quietly in the corner. Every pair of eyes in the room turned against him, and his face lost color. "Tell us this isn't true," said Marcus's Aunt Marlene softly, in a voice that was both heartbreaking and accusing. Marcus rubbed his face, breathing heavily, His shoulders slumped as if the entire room had suddenly fallen on him, and then he raised his head, his eyes bloodshot, and muttered, "You deceived me, Marcus. Family." The room exploded in pandemonium as shouts, sobbing, and accusations all came at once. TAI shouted, her hands shaking so much that she almost toppled a chair. Marcus attempted to speak, but the cacophony of voices drowned out his words. Chantel, on the other hand, stood tall in the middle, her face triumphant and icy. "I told you," she said sharply, cutting through the commotion. "You sat at my table, ate food in my home, and all this time you were sneaking around with Evelyn. As you can all see, I wasn't exaggerating when I said, I told you she was hiding something big." When Evelyn finally lost it, she collapsed into a chair with tears running down her cheeks. She wailed, "I never meant for it to happen. When I felt alone, Marcus was there. I didn't plan any of this. Don't you dare stand there and act like this was some accident. You tore this family apart? You let me think it was my husband while you sat back and let the lie grow. How could you, Evelyn? How could you?" Marcus stepped forward, his voice shaking. "Don't blame her alone. I'm just as guilty. I should have stopped it. TAI's rage burned brighter when I just thought no one cared. I should have left, but I didn't, and now it's all ruined." His tone of unvarnished honesty only made the wound worse. Family members were yelling at him, calling him a disgrace and demanding that he leave. Some pleaded with TAI to stop the situation from getting worse, but TAI was uncontrollable. "Get out." She yelled at Marcus, her voice saying, "Get out of my sight before I do something I regret. I don't want to see your face again." Marcus lowered his head, shame radiating from every move. Evelyn reached out weakly as if to stop him, but he didn't look back. The reality of what had just been revealed set in even more deeply when the door closed behind him. Evelyn's sobs filled the room as she looked at TAI, her eyes begging, "I'm sorry." He turned and walked towards the door without saying another word. "I promise I didn't aim to do you any harm. This is not how I wanted you to find out." TAI's face hardened, her body trembling as she spoke. "Sorry? Do you believe that saying sorry is sufficient? You ruined everything. You caused me to doubt my sanity, my marriage, and my trust. I'm supposed to feel sorry for you now? No, you are not forgiven, Evelyn. Not right now." The once close-knit circle was now split wide open, loyalty lines drawn, hearts shattered. Chantel single quotes, his voice rang out again, sharp and unapologetic. "Maybe you're all mad at me for bringing it to light, but imagine if I hadn't." Family members gathered around TAI, some hugging her tightly, while others stared at Evelyn with disgust. Some nodded grudgingly, acknowledging that Chantel had forced the truth into the open, even if her methods were brutal. Others glared at her, muttering that she had taken pleasure in tearing apart the family. Online. The fallout exploded like wildfire. Fans flooded social media with incredulous, angry, and endless speculation. Within minutes, clips of Marcus's admission went viral, and hashtags like #WarriorEvelyn exposed. Marcus debut father and Dr. CHL was dominated every trending list. Inside the house, TAI slowly got to her feet, her strength returning as the shock started to harden into resolve. "I don't know what comes next," she said, her voice trembling but clear. "But I know one thing, Evelyn. Whatever happens with your baby, that's your burden. Not mine." Evelyn let out a broken cry, burying her face in her hands, but Chantel seemed almost satisfied, giving a small shrug and whispering just loud enough for the cameras to catch. The truth always comes out, and with that, the damage was done. The family sat in silence, broken and divided. The betrayal had been revealed. The relationships were permanently scarred, and the questions that remained were heavier than any of them could bear. Was this really the end of TAI and Evelyn's relationship? Could the family ever move past Marcus's confession? Or was this just the start of a scandal that would haunt them for years? After everything that happened, it's obvious that this story is far from over. The shocking revelations, the heated arguments, the betrayals that went deeper than anyone could have, none of it has left this family the same. Fans are still divided over TAI's heartbreak and Chantel's unrepentant exposure, with some applauding Chantel for bringing the truth to light and others accusing her of tearing the family apart for dramatic effect. However, there are still a lot of unanswered questions, such as whether TAI will ever be able to move on after learning of this level of betrayal from her cousin and her so-called friend, whether Evelyn will handle this pregnancy alone, or whether Marcus will take responsibility despite the shame and backlash, whether this family will ever recover from a scandal that is now public, scrutinized by millions on social media, or whether the truth has permanently shattered bonds that were meant to last a lifetime. If you were as shocked as we were, please hit the like button. Subscribe for more updates on this ongoing drama. And turn on the notification bell so you never miss a single twist in this wild story. Chapter: The next revelation. The next confrontation that will either bring closure or set off an even bigger explosion. And trust me, in this world of secrets and lies, closure is never guaranteed. Now we want to hear from you. Do you think Chantel was right all along? Or do you think Evelyn's explanation? Can TAI ever forgive? Or is this betrayal too great to overcome? Because if we've learned anything, it's that this family never has drama, stops, never comes to an end.